Hey, welcome to a new video. Once a strong bond forms between a human and an animal, time and distance do little to break it. Whether it's a loyal dog, a clever parrot, or even a lion raised in captivity, animals don't easily forget the people who cared for them.
Are you new to this channel? Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And before we start, also like the video.
As the girl approached the familiar pasture, her heart pounded with anticipation. The moment she laid eyes on the massive bull she had raised from a calf, memories of their time together came flooding back. The bull walked straight up to her and gently rested his enormous head on her legs, seeking comfort and affection. She scratched him softly behind the ears, and the bond between them was instantly undeniable. When she tried to walk away, he instinctively blocked her path and playfully nudged her back, as if to say he wasn't letting her go so easily. It was clear their separation had been just as hard on him as it had been on her. She had cared for him every day during the first 2 years of his life, helping him grow from a fragile calf into the imposing creature he had become. Born with complications, he had trouble walking, so she spent weeks building leg braces from pipes, socks, and duct tape to help him stand. That act of love only deepened their connection. She remembered how he once ate roses without a care for the thorns, and how their caregiving bond brought them closer. In the years that followed, visits to the ranch where he lived were rare, mostly during holidays, because the nearly 2-hour drive made it tough. But this Christmas, she finally returned. When she called out to him from across the pasture, he took a moment to recognize her voice, then came running, eager to show just how much he'd grown. In a heartwarming moment, a golden doodle named Bentley was reunited with his owner, Samantha Orr, after nearly 3 weeks lost in the wilderness. The emotional reunion happened as the 1-year-old dog, visibly shaken, cautiously approached her. He was dehydrated, malnourished, and his once fluffy fur was matted and tangled. But when he finally recognized her, he sprinted into her arms, bringing tears of relief to Samantha's eyes. Samantha, a 21-year-old college student, had just experienced a devastating tragedy. During an off-road accident in which their Jeep fell nearly 600 feet, or 183 meters off a cliff, she lost her mother and sustained serious injuries. Bentley had been ejected from the vehicle and vanished. For 19 days, he wandered through the rugged terrain of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, struggling to survive. With support from the community, flyers were posted everywhere. One kind-hearted man, Joseph Stratman, saw the call for help and drove hours to join the search. When he spotted Bentley high on the mountain, he brought Samantha with him, and the long-awaited reunion finally happened. Limbani was born with pneumonia and rejected by his mother. But thanks to the care of Tanya and Jorge Sanchez, he got a second chance at life. At just 4 days old, Limbani was in critical condition and required round-the-clock attention. The Zoological Wildlife Foundation in Miami arranged for him to stay temporarily with the Sanchez family. For 7 months, they raised him as if he were their own child, an act that proved vital since early maternal rejection can cause lasting emotional harm in chimpanzees. A deep bond formed, especially between Limbani and Jorge. Every time they reunited, Limbani would scream with joy. Chimpanzees have extraordinary memory and can recognize faces and voices even after decades apart. Their recognition goes beyond sight or scent. It's deeply tied to emotional connection. When Limbani saw his foster parents again after 6 years, he instantly recognized them and leapt into their arms in celebration. A moment so touching, it captured hearts around the world. In a moving story from Inner Mongolia, a loyal camel trekked over 62 miles or 100 kilometers through the Gobi Desert to reunite with her former owners. The 20-year-old camel had been sold in October and initially seemed to adjust to her new home. But after a routine summer shearing, she suddenly escaped and began a perilous solo journey back. For 7 days, she crossed vast desert landscapes, highways, mountains, and fences. And then, against all odds, she showed up at the doorstep of her old home. Her former owners were deeply touched by her unbelievable loyalty and immediately bought her back. "She walked all this way to come home," they said. "We'll never sell her again." They organized a special celebration for her return, and from that day forward, the camel was treated as a beloved family member, free to roam wherever she pleased. Experts note that despite their rugged appearance, camels can form surprisingly strong emotional bonds with people in familiar environments. The reunion of the 2 wild horses, Phoenix and Ghost, after 2 years apart, was nothing short of magical. Phoenix had been rescued from the wild, but always remained restless. Once, he even leapt over a fence. Not to escape, but seemingly in a desperate attempt to find his lost herd. His caretaker noticed how he would silently stare at the horizon, as if waiting for someone. For 2 years, she searched for the mare he once roamed with in the wild. Then one day, a friend sent her a photo of a horse with unmistakable brown ears and legs. It had to be Ghost. After weeks of preparation, Ghost was brought to the ranch. When the gate opened and Phoenix heard her call, he galloped over the hill, whinnying loudly. They greeted each other with gentle nose touches, visibly emotional. Scientific studies confirm that horses can form strong social bonds and remember companions even after long separations. The bond Phoenix and Ghost had built in the wild had clearly never faded, even after 2 years apart. We know dogs, horses, monkeys, and even camels can remember their families. But what about rabbits? This man filmed his reunion with his pet rabbit, Beanie, in 2017, after returning from a long vacation. At first, he walked through the door and Beanie appeared hesitantly. But the moment the rabbit recognized him, it dashed toward him with joy. Beanie hopped in circles and rubbed affectionately against his owner. You can clearly see how emotional the man becomes, while the bunny can't contain its excitement, happily following him everywhere. Was it pure happiness? Or fear that he might leave again? Rabbits are known for their ability to remember scents and voices, especially those of people they've bonded with. Some studies even suggest that rabbits, like dogs, can develop attachment behaviors toward their caregivers. Later in the video, Beanie refuses to leave his side, sniffing his head, leaning against him, and gazing at him with clear affection. In a memorable 2012 episode of Judge Judy, an incredibly touching moment unfolded in the courtroom. A dog named Baby Boy was at the center of a custody dispute. A man claimed the dog had been stolen from him, while a woman insisted she bought the dog legally for $50 from someone outside a shopping mall. She presented photos and vet records as evidence, but the man testified emotionally that Baby Boy was like a child to him. Judge Judy Sheindlin, known for her no-nonsense style, came up with a simple solution: let the dog decide. As soon as Baby Boy was set down in the courtroom, he ran straight to the man, tail wagging and leaping with joy. The woman insisted the dog behaved that way with everyone, but Judge Judy had seen enough. The emotional reunion went viral, shared around the world as a powerful example of the unbreakable bond between a person and their dog. It was a moment that showcased not only justice, but also the remarkable loyalty and memory dogs are capable of. Buttercup, a sweet and resilient pig, finally began a life of freedom, love, and care after years of hardship. She had spent 6 long years on a factory farm, confined to a tiny metal crate used solely for breeding piglets. One employee developed a bond with Buttercup and wanted to give her a better life. That's when Ziggy's Refuge, a sanctuary for rescued farm animals in North Carolina, stepped in. They took Buttercup in and gave her what she'd never known before: a bed of soft straw, cozy blankets, rubber flooring, and a diet of fresh vegetables, fruit, and her favorite, anything topped with applesauce. She underwent medical evaluations to monitor her health, as years of confinement had left both physical and emotional scars. But after 6 years, Buttercup finally felt soil under her hooves and sunshine on her back. Her caretakers watched with emotion as she cautiously explored her new world, including a refreshing bite of watermelon. Nigel, an African gray parrot, returned to his owner after 4 years, but now he spoke fluent Spanish. The bird belonged to Darren Chick, a British expat in California, and was known for his sharp memory and impressive speech skills. In 2010, Nigel mysteriously vanished, only to reappear 4 years later in the backyard of a couple who ran a dog grooming business. To their surprise, the bird spoke Spanish, kept asking for someone named Larry, and was initially mistaken for another missing parrot. Thanks to an implanted microchip, veterinarian Teresa Micco was able to identify him and eventually track down Chick, after examining dozens of other African greys. At their reunion, Chick was overjoyed, despite Nigel giving him a playful bite. The parrot chirped phrases like "no problema," mimicked barking dogs, and even recreated salsa music, signs of life with a Spanish-speaking family. Studies show African gray parrots can remember and imitate dozens of human voices, even after many years. Interestingly, after some time back with Chick, Nigel slowly lost interest in Spanish and returned to his old behavior, though the identity of the mysterious Larry remains unsolved. During the devastating Australian bushfires in November 2019, one emotional moment captured hearts around the world. Near Port Macquarie, Tony Doherty spotted an injured koala and didn't hesitate for a second. She wrapped the animal in her blouse, gently poured water over it to cool it down, and rushed it to a wildlife hospital. The koala, later named Lewis, had burns on his paws and body, but initially responded well to treatment. Tony even came to visit him in the hospital. Sadly, Lewis's condition worsened, and to prevent further suffering, the difficult decision was made to euthanize him. Footage of his dramatic rescue went viral and deeply moved viewers across the globe. As a result, over $1 million was raised to support koala rescues and environmental recovery in the region. Though Lewis didn't survive, his story left a legacy of compassion and global awareness. You've probably heard that an elephant's memory is very good. This is the story of Christy, an Asian elephant who still remembers her trainer after 30 years. Her trainer, Peter Adamson, met Christy at a zoo in Scotland. But when it closed, Christy was transferred to another zoo. The pair had not seen each other for a very long time, but by chance ran into each other again briefly at the Neuenkircher Zoo in Germany. Peter was there to visit his friends, and that's when he discovered that Christy was still alive. He hadn't expected that, as she was already 52 years old by now. Imagine a fully grown black rhino charging toward you. Not in fear or aggression, but in pure joy. In 2015, at the Liwa Wildlife Conservancy in Kenya, an extraordinary bond formed between an orphaned rhino calf named Kitwe and his caretaker, Kamara. Separated from his blind mother, Kitwe's chances in the wild seemed grim. But Kamara, a seasoned wildlife caretaker, took him in. He bottle-fed him, walked with him daily, and slowly built a deep bond. Thanks to Kamara's dedicated care, Kitwe was eventually strong enough to be reintroduced to the wild, a major success for the conservation program. Years later, an unexpected reunion occurred. The moment Kitwe heard Kamara's voice, he ran toward him, clearly overjoyed. That moment was living proof of how dedication and trust can leave a lasting impact on endangered species. They say that wild animals normally can't bond with people, but the following story is of a penguin named Jinjing, who travels some 8,000 kilometers every year to see his best friend. Joao was an old retired fisherman, and he once found Jinjing near his home, lying on the rocks, and decided to rescue him. Since then, the penguin stays with the man from June to February. The other months, the penguin leaves for the breeding grounds and then returns to the fisherman again. They seem to have formed a strong bond, and Joao even said that Jinjing doesn't like it when there are other animals around his owner. When Sonia the bear was a little cub, Jonathan took care of her because she was an orphan almost all her life. Jonathan and Sonia had formed a special bond when the little bear was young. They spent a lot of time together then, but at some point they were separated from each other. Just like that, Sonia had not seen her friend for many, many years since then. And now, as they are together again, you can see how happy she is. Gabriel, a cheetah, met his caretaker for the first time in 2014, a moment that shaped the rest of his life. At just 10 months old, Gabriel was playful, curious, and unusually affectionate. Over the course of a year, the two bonded through games, walks, and even sleeping beside each other. A year later, they reunited, but now Gabriel was an adolescent, and at first he seemed hesitant. Slowly, though, recognition dawned, and their connection resurfaced. Despite warnings that Gabriel had grown more aggressive, he continued to seek out human interaction, especially with men, a reflection of his social nature as a male cheetah. Gabriel was part of a broader conservation effort, critical given that only about 10,000 cheetahs remain in the wild. Still, he wasn't always easy. Gabriel bit people, jumped on female volunteers, and even attacked a female cheetah, earning him a separate enclosure. But his affection for familiar humans never faded, though that affection sometimes came with a few scratches. This story will leave you speechless because this spoonbill bird still recognizes the man who had raised him as a chick. Dungji, as the bird is called, was only small when the man found him completely starved. The bird had drifted during the monsoon rains. The man rescued the little bird, but saw that Dungji was in very bad shape. The chances of him being well were also very slim. Therefore, the man took extra good care of him. He even taught him to hunt and fly. And now the bird follows the man closely and doesn't even hesitate to go to the bathroom with him. On a quiet river, a giant crocodile swam toward a man in a boat. Instead of panicking, the man calmly turned off the motor and hand-fed the croc. This unlikely friendship began 23 years earlier when a fisherman named Baba found a bleeding, injured crocodile drifting in the water. Instead of leaving him to die, Baba brought him ashore and spent weeks nursing him back to health. Fellow fishermen urged him to sell the animal, but Baba refused, healing the crocodile before releasing him back into the lake. The next day, the crocodile returned and waited for him. From that day on, they met daily. Every time Baba's boat approached, the croc would swim up excitedly for a meal. This kind of long-term bond is incredibly rare in crocodiles, who aren't known for social attachments to humans. But Bob was different, and let's be honest, who wouldn't want a crocodile for a friend? Dogs are man's best friends, and we have all heard stories of dogs who waited for their owners for years and missed them. For example, the movie Hachi a Dog's Tale tells us a lot about how loyal dogs can be. The reunion between Ratchquell Brown and her dog Charlie happened after a devastating tornado hit the U.S. state of Oklahoma. Ratchquell thought she would never see her dog Charlie again. However, when the woman, along with a news correspondent, went back to her devastated home 2 days after the catastrophe, her little dog Charlie appeared out of nowhere. The little dog was miraculously alive, and the woman burst into tears when she saw Charlie again. That lions can be dangerous is obvious, and you would assume that they can't have an owner or master. But Kiara the lioness is different. Adolfo is Kiara's adopted father, who raised her when she was a cub. The moment when the man walks into the lion enclosure and Kiara runs to him is incredibly cute to watch. You would think that this might be a dangerous situation, but the lioness sees him, jumps up to the man and gives him a huge hug. Super cute, and yet a little scary. In the UK, an unusual friendship blossomed at the Nuneaton in Warwickshire Wildlife Sanctuary. A young fox named Dawn was found by someone who mistook her for a dog and brought her to a kennel. Once the confusion was cleared up, she was transferred to a wildlife center. By then, however, Dawn was so accustomed to humans that returning her to the wild wasn't possible. She wagged her tail, rolled over for belly rubs, and sought affection from Jeff, the sanctuary's security manager. Their bond became a symbol of the deep friendship that can exist between humans and animals, even those not typically seen as pets. Experts say that foxes, when socialized from a young age, can form surprisingly strong attachments to people. This story is one of the most heartbreaking reunions. A woman named Emma was taking care of a horse that was adopted by a ranch. Miko, as the horse was called, wouldn't let anyone near him at all except Emma, and the two became very close. Emma visited her horse every week, but one day Miko was nowhere to be seen. The ranch had sold the horse without letting her know. It wasn't until 2 years later that the woman managed to find him again on Craigslist, and she recognized him immediately. Miko luckily recognized her too, and they have been inseparable ever since. In 2015, an emotional reunion between a woman and 2 lions she had raised as cubs captivated the internet. The lions, Malkia and Adele, were rescued from a circus in South Africa and brought to Malkia Park Big Cats Rescue in Slovakia. There, caretaker Michaela Zimanova bottle-fed them, played with them, and became their surrogate mother. The deep love and care she gave them as young cubs created a lifelong bond. When they reached adulthood, the lions were moved to a protected enclosure for their safety. Years later, Michaela returned to visit, and in a viral video, the lions instantly recognized her, sprinting toward her with purrs, head nudges, and full-body hugs. The footage was seen by millions and became a powerful reminder of the lasting connection between humans and even the most fearsome wild animals. Today, Malkia Park, named after the lioness herself, serves as a sanctuary for big cats rescued from poor conditions across Europe. An English wildlife biologist named Damien Aspinall was the one who raised Queeby, a lowland gorilla. However, he had not seen the gorilla for over 5 years. So naturally, Damien was excited to see Queeby again. But the big question was, how will the gorilla react to him? After all, it had been 5 years and Queeby had grown much bigger and stronger since then. The man had to travel a long way to meet his friend, as Queeby is located in the remote jungles of Gabon. When Queeby saw Damien, he was overjoyed, and it became a loving reunion. Sharks you probably didn't expect on this list, but a shark named Emma became very good friends with a diver named Jim. Jim kept diving in the same spot over the years, and so he met the shark several times. At first, she was afraid of him, but every time he went diving, she would come back to see him. The man began to communicate with Emma, and that's how he found out that she really liked head massages. Today, the two are the best of friends, and every time Jim dives, Emma comes looking for him. In April 2019, a heartwarming reunion took place in Sydney, Australia, between a homeless man named Chris and his pet rat, Lucy. The two were a familiar pair around the city, often spotted together as Chris chatted with passers-by while Lucy calmly sat nearby. One day, Chris left her alone for just a moment. A well-meaning woman saw Lucy, assumed she had been abandoned, and took her home to care for her. When Chris returned and discovered Lucy was gone, he was devastated. He filed a report with the New South Wales Police and created a handwritten sign that read, "My rat Lucy was stolen on Saturday. Lucy is black and white with a little brown." His plea and photo spread quickly on social media. The woman soon recognized the story, realized her mistake, and contacted the police. The reunion was incredibly moving. Lucy crawled into Chris's lap, and he lifted her up with tenderness. The moment he saw her blind eye, he knew without a doubt she was his Lucy, and she clearly hadn't forgotten him either. Jupiter is a circus lion rescued by a woman from a terrible place where he was treated badly. From a young age, the lion stayed at the circus where conditions were terrible. When animal rights activists found information about this circus, he was rescued and taken to a Colombian shelter. There, he developed a loving relationship with his human mother, Ana Julia Torres. Whenever the woman came to visit Jupiter, he was so happy, he acted like a little kitten. In a video that touched millions online, a donkey in Brazil was reunited with the girl who had raised him. After a long time apart, the donkey saw her again, and his reaction was immediate and intense. He brayed loudly, perked up his ears, and joyfully ran toward her. He pressed his muzzle against her, even resting his head and chin on her shoulder, as if to give her his full weight. The emotional moment showed just how powerful the bond between humans and animals can be. Donkeys are known for their intelligence and emotional depth. When raised with love, they form strong, lasting connections. They can remember faces for years and are capable of deep affection toward their caregivers. In many rural communities, donkeys are not just work animals. They're considered family. This reunion was a beautiful reminder that love and loyalty know no species. The condor is a huge bird that can reach a wingspan of over 3 meters. This next story is about a man named Edgardo, who once saved the life of a condor bird when it was just a little chick. A few years later, the man saw the bird again, and the moment the two embraced is very emotional to see. They say birds don't have good memories, but this bird can remember his owner all too well. Wolves are usually seen as dangerous animals that we should definitely stay away from. But did you know that it is actually very rare for wolves to attack humans? Anita broke the stereotypical thinking about the dangers of wolves when she spent more than 2 years with a pack of wolves and tried to have social contact with them in the polar park in Norway. When the woman had to leave the pack for about 2 months, it turned out that they had missed her because they were extremely happy to see Anita when she returned. The story of Derek and Kamla, a majestic elephant and her human best friend, is one of extraordinary love, trust, and connection. Whenever Derek calls her name, Kamla leaves her herd and runs to him. One day during the rainy season, Derek was relaxing in the river. When he called her, Kamla stood across the water with her family. The moment she heard him, she rushed into the river, worried for his safety. Once she reached him, she gently guided him to shore and checked on him with her trunk. According to Derek, their bond is based on mutual respect, not rewards. A bond that was tested when they were separated for 14 months during the COVID-19 pandemic. He feared she might be angry, as she sometimes was after shorter absences. But when they finally saw each other again, she charged toward him with her entire herd. In the river, she wrapped her trunk around his hand and pulled him close, in a warm, unforgettable embrace. A reunion that moved hearts around the world. Monkeys are believed to be the closest to humans when it comes to our evolution, so no wonder they experience feelings just like us. When they miss someone, they actually do. Miro, the man who worked in a circus, had to spend a long year away from his best friend, the monkey with whom he had a very strong bond. But when Miro came back and the monkey saw him, this cute animal started crying and hugging his best friend. One day, this woman found an injured squirrel on the street, and since then, Bella, the squirrel, comes to the woman's house almost every day to visit her. Bella was thought to have been attacked by owls 8 years ago, and the woman took her in and raised the little animal as her own daughter. Every time Bella comes back to see her mother, she gives her a kiss on the nose, grabs some peanuts, and runs back into the forest, where she now lives. After a devastating EF3 tornado struck Van, Texas, the Bouchignon family experienced a powerful reunion with their dog, Tater. During the storm, Andy and Brandy Bouchillon grabbed their 2-week-old baby, Bailey, and their dog and fled to their SUV. The intense winds flipped the vehicle, injuring the family and separating them from Tater. Once Bailey was safe, they feared the worst for their dog. 2 days later, they returned to the wrecked area, and there was Tater, alive and waiting for them near the destroyed vehicle. The joy was overwhelming. Andy could hardly hold back tears as Tater leapt into their arms. Experts believe his survival was thanks to instinct and his familiarity with the area, allowing him to take shelter among the debris. The video of their emotional reunion went viral, offering a glimmer of hope amid tragedy and highlighting the deep bond between humans and their animals, even in the darkest moments. A man named Mike had lost his dog Jack for almost 3 years, and since then the man was not the same. All this time he was depressed, but he never gave up looking for his best friend. Mike could not accept the fact that Jack was gone forever. Probably his faith was so strong that 3 years later the miracle happened that he saw Jack again. In fact, one day Mike received a call that Jack had been found almost 800 kilometers from his home. Mike immediately got in the car and drove all the way in one stretch to finally see his dog again. 12 years ago, Butters, the beloved cat of Angelo and Shelley Castellino from San Diego, slipped away and disappeared. Despite desperate searches, they eventually had to let go. Years later, they received a call. Butters had been found, over 200 miles or 322 kilometers away in Blythe, California. A man had discovered him in his backyard, and thanks to a microchip, he was identified. By now, the Castellinos had moved to Seattle, but the rescue center arranged for Butters to be flown back to them. When he arrived, the reunion was emotional. Butters immediately recognized them, and Angelo and Shelley were overwhelmed with joy to hold their long-lost friend once more. Microchips play a vital role in reuniting pets with their families, even after many years. In another Christmas miracle, a woman named Trisha was reunited with her cat, Sophia, 7 years after she went missing. Sophia had ended up 400 miles or 644 kilometers from home and was taken to a shelter. Thanks to her chip, they found Trisha's contact info. Waiting anxiously at Sky Harbor Airport, Trisha cried tears of joy when Sophia finally arrived. Experts strongly encourage all pet owners to microchip their animals. It's often the only way to bring them home. Do you have a pet? Have you ever experienced an emotional reunion with an animal? Let us know in the comments. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos we've made, click one on the screen or take a look at the channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.